Hello everybody, welcome to another new player guide for new players. Today we're going to be talking about Jim Culver, the musician from the Dunwich Legacy expansion. If this is your first time seeing one of those videos, we make a deck, well, Travis and Bryn make the deck that contains 2 copies of the core set and everything, only cards from the cycle that this investigator came from. This only includes the core set and the Dunwich Legacy cycle. We recommend if you only have one core set, you grab a second one or proxy the cards you don't have. It will help you win more if your deck's more consistent. This does have something from the taboo list, so I can say this. You might have heard about something called the taboo list when you're just starting this game out. We recommend you ignore the taboo list for the time being and just play with the cards as printed. They're powerful and fun that way, and you don't need to worry about making things harder until you start understanding the game itself. I'll talk about Jim because him and I have the most tense relationship of everybody in playing board games. Jim has 4 brain, 3 book, 3 fist, and 2 foot. So he has 4 brain, which is very good. 3 book and 3 fist, which is good for if you need to grab clues or fight enemies. You might need a little bit boost for some of them, but like the stats aren't bad. And then 2 foot, so like you're not going to be really evading, and so that's not really a thing. Jim's special power is that he treats the modifier on skull tokens you reveal as a 0. Anytime you reveal a Elder Sign token, you may choose to instead treat it as a skull token. And the Elder Sign effect is just +1. Some things to note is that it is still a skull token when drawn, so unlike how we first played the game, Baseball Bat does break when Jim reveals a skull token with it. It's just a 0 skull token. The modifier becomes 0. It stays a skull token. That sounds great, and like actually honestly having more 0s in the token pool is strong. Right, like that's a nice printed ability. It does change from campaign to campaign. So like in Dunwich Legacy and most of the other ones, it's pretty standard. But in Carcosa, Jim is very good in Carcosa because you start with 3 skulls immediately right off the bat. His special is Jim's Trumpet, which commits for 2 brain and a wild. But it's also like one of the best healing items in the game because it just passively helps your whole team. So when a skill token is revealed during a skill test. Any skill test, anyone, if any player does it, you can exhaust it to heal 1 horror from an investigator or your location or connecting location. That's pretty sweet.
It's a good healing card because you don't have to put it in your deck.
Yeah, it's there for you. Yeah, that's also very nice.
The investment is also like incredibly minimal.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Because you're really not going to have big hand slots in this color. At least with what you're going. You can just be like 1 hand for your trumpet and then 1 hand if you need it for something else. He has his personal weakness is the Final Rhapsody. You reveal 5 tokens from the Chaos Bag all at the same time. For each skull or tentacle token revealed, take 1 damage and 1 horror. So this does have the chance to deal, in Carcosa for example, 4 damage and 4 horror. That's very rare though. Most of the time, you're looking like the worst case scenario, what you should expect is 2 damage and 2 horror. There are outliers. Most of the time, it's 1. Expect 2 is the worst case, and there are going to be times when it's 0, and you're like, yeah, baby. And then there's going to be times when the only skulls you see as Jim are for the Final Rhapsody. So just prepare for that as well.
It could do you 5 in Carcosa, Justin, if you reveal the 3 skulls, the Autofail Squid, or the Bryn token, as I call it, and the Elder Sign token, and then you choose to treat the Elder Sign as a skull. So, like...
That's a good point. That's a good point. You could do that as well. I never thought about
Should you do that? No.
That is so funny. Do one of you guys want to talk about the Dunwich Legacy deck building style and why it is actually like one of the strongest in the game? Why it's not strongest, but why it's like really good and really efficient?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, you go for it. You got it.
Okay, so you get to play cards 0 to 5, 1 color, neutral 0 to 5, of course, and then up to 5 level 1 cards of any color. And I mean, this part what I'm about to say next isn't super relevant when you're building with just 1 cycle, but with a fuller, bigger collection, most colors can kind of do whatever they want. They have the cards in their color to get clues, to fight monsters, to interact with the encounter deck. Like, they can do everything themselves. There's no gaping holes in their ability to do things. And then so you can just use your 5 off-color cards to either do something better that maybe your class is a little bit not great at, or to just play like generally good cards.
So for this one, you can see we did, Travis did 2 elusive, 2 shortcut, and 1 liquid courage. We'll talk about them later when we get to them, but there's a large variety of cards you can do to suit what you want. Like if you want luckies, you can put luckies in, etc., etc. All right.
Yeah, you kind of just really cherry pick the best cards that nobody's playing, right?
Yeah, when you're building with a more limited card pool now, though, you should probably look at playing cards to shore up what you're bad at, or like weaknesses in your deck. Because if you don't have a bigger collection, then there's definitely going to be some holes in what your card pool can accomplish within a given class.
Sick. Let's dive in and start talking about the cards. First up, we got Flashlight. This is a nice investigation tool, especially at 3 book, because it'll turn it's basically just a perception. You commit it for 2 books, but it lowers the shroud of a location. So a 3 becomes a 1, which is very doable, but then with your 3 up 2 is a nice place to be for an investigation test. Another thing to note, if you bring a location down to 0 and you investigate, if the shroud is 0, you'll pass unless you draw the auto-fail shit. Thumbs up. Shriveling is how you're going to be dealing your damage with your brain with Jim, and it's for most mystics, this is what they're going to be using, especially with a limited collection, especially also with Dunwich Legacy. So it just is a way to deal damage, and if you draw a skull token, it still counts as a skull for the purposes of taking 1 horror, so just be aware of that. Holy Rosary is nice. It bumps your brain to 5, which makes it pretty comfortable for attacking without modification for the majority of the enemies you'll find in the campaign. It also gives you 2 more brain, which is nice because Shriveling can deal you damage, and other cards in your class will also deal you damage. Horror, not damage. Arcane Initiate, she'll help you find your spells. When you place 1 Doom on her, that seems scary, but you can just replace her or with another ally in the deck, who we're going to be talking about when we get to the Dunwich cards, or just have her die, or alternatively, if you draw her and the Doom's about to tick over anyway, play her and the Doom will go away on her when you advance the Mythos. Bryn, you're up next.
I see, green cards. So, we've got Drawn to the Flame. 0, we just get 2 clues off our location. We don't even have to make a test. But the downside is we have to draw a card off of the Mythos deck. Which might seem scary, but we have 4 brain, and most of the cards in the game are going to be attacking that. So, we're pretty safe. We can also fight monsters pretty good, so, there's not much that comes out of the deck that we're really afraid of. Mm-hmm. We've got Elusive, which is very powerful. For 2 resources, and it's fast. We get to disengage from all the enemies engaged with us and just move to another location. Any location. How many actions could that be in 1 card?
Yeah, a lot.
I don't have a calculator handy, so I'm not going to tell you. But, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. Emergency Cache is just pretty standard fare. It's very rare that you end up seeing a deck that doesn't want to play it. Unless, you're Justin, I guess. In which case, it's most... Yeah. Ward of Protection. We can just use this to cancel any Treachery card out of the Mythos deck. Worth noting, we don't get to cancel its other effects like Surge, but we get to cancel its Revelation effect, which is most of what it does.
Yeah.
So if we've got this, we could play a Drawn to the Flame, there's pretty much nothing that we can be afraid of out of the deck.
Yeah. It also deals you 1 horror, which, especially when we get to one of the one of from his 5 off colors, we'll also talk about a bit further. Travis, why don't you do I'll do the Guts talk so you can talk about the next collection of cards. Guts is good for 2 reasons in Jim. The first one is you're going to be using your brain for a lot of things. You're going to be using them for getting clues and fighting monsters. The second reason is that the Mythos deck is going to fight you most commonly through brain, and being able to boost up your brain to not take damage and then also draw a card afterwards is super nice. One of manual dexterity is here to also help you defend against the Mythos deck to get you up to 4 foot, which is pretty comfortable for a lot of cards. Like Grasping Hands, which you probably are aware of in the starting encounter deck. You'll be testing 4 to 3, which means the damage you'll take will be a lot less, and you potentially even just pass the test with a skull. Look at that! Wow. We didn't know. This is on me. Jim Culver has pretty nice stats. He has 7 meat and 8 brain, which is very comfortable, especially for a mystic. Unexpected Courage is nice. You get it's basically just another guts, manual dexterity, or anything else you might need when the time comes for it. Travis, why don't you take these guys? There's some Travis specials in here.
Yeah, Rite of Seeking is a spell that lets you investigate with your brain, which is good because your book's worse than your brain. It also gets you more than 1 clue, and sometimes it makes you end all your actions, which is like not great, but just do it as your last action, then there's no punishment. Easy. Then we have Alyssa Graham as our second ally because, you want to off your Arcane Initiates probably pretty quick. And to be honest, you don't have that many spells in the deck. You got like the Rite of Seekings, the Shrivelings, and the
Ward of Protection.
That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, she gives you a flat +1 book, which is pretty nice and makes like the flashlights actually pretty good. Investigating at an effective 6 is it's a pretty good place to be. Mm-hmm. And she also gets to take a peek at the encounter decks and or other players' deck, and you can add Doom on her to put that card on the bottom of their deck. Soaks a bit of damage, quite a bit of horror. The effect to look at things is particularly nice. It's kind of like extra Ward of Protections almost. Mm-hmm. In that you can take a peek if it's an Ancient Evils or something particularly nasty. You're like, no, we'll just put that on the bottom, add Doom to Alyssa, and then we'll kill her later.
Yeah, she's a much easier problem to solve than an Ancient Evil.
Yeah, but that flat +1 book is like the real winner with her.
Yeah, having 4 book is pretty nice for Jim.
Yep. Jim's one of cards we have here is Liquid Courage, which was just kind of a throw-in because there's quite a few things that do brain damage to you here. You've got the Ward of Protections and the Shrivelings that are going to ding you yourself, as well as the Final Rhapsody that can do a bunch of damage to you. And if you're drawing extra cards with Delve Too Deep and Drawn to the Flame, that's also going to do brain damage to you. Lots of cards do brain damage to you, it turns out. And it's just like you already have some healing in the trumpet, and this just kind of adds a little bit more consistency to that you can sort of rely on being able to dig up a brain or horror healing card at some point in the game.
Yeah.
Finally, we have Delve Too Deep, which makes each player draw a card from the encounter deck, and then you add to victorious play. It gives you 1 experience at the end of the game. So really good card. You just gotta be careful with it.
Yeah, we just played with it today, and it feels as great as it always does.
Yeah, the victory is especially important as a purple character because a lot of your really good cards cost a lot of experience.
Yeah, and what Travis means by play it smart is that at the end, do it at the end of the game. Everyone else is resigned. It's just you. Play it and then resign yourself. So it'll just sit in your hand for the majority of the game, but that's okay because then you can trigger it when you want to get the benefit from it. And then there's Shortcut. Shortcut's awesome. It's a great splash card for a Dunwich Investigator as well because it just represents a free action and free movement for you or another investigator at your location. It doesn't sound strong, but it's such a good tool to have in your deck that when you're able to play it, you can feel the power that it gave you for that turn. This is a card as well we were just playing with today, and every time it was played, it was like, yes, please, thank you. Let's talk about upgrades, shall we? Grotesque Statue. This helps you get skulls. You want skulls as Jim. This allows you to reveal a Chaos token. When you reveal a Chaos token, you can spend a charge. There's 4 charges. To reveal 2 tokens instead of 1, choose 1 to resolve and ignore the other. If you don't find a skull, it's also very powerful for giving you a higher chance of succeeding a test. Grotesque Statue is a very fun, strong card, and I think it's a very good one for Jim, skulls aside.
Yeah, I just want to, as Jim, you don't necessarily want skulls depending on your build. Like in this one, if you're getting a skull during a couple of your tests, like it's great if you draw it during a flashlight test or whatever. But if you're drawing it during Shriveling or a Rite of Seeking, like the Grotesque Statue probably isn't looking for the skull specifically. It's better than like a -4 or whatever, of course. It's better than failing in most cases. But you don't always want that skull. You gotta be aware of what kind of downsides you have when you draw them.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's especially relevant for like Shriveling. Don't just choose a skull because it can be a 0 when there's like a -2 there that also still passes the test for you.
Yeah, like use your brain a little bit.
Yeah. All right. From its cycle, I want you guys can take the first 3. I'm going to talk about the last one.
This is Border Protection level 5. It's probably a card that Bryn's never seen before. Except
I've seen that one before. I've considered that one several times, knowing full well that Travis would like berate me for having put it in my deck because we played with 3 players.
Yeah, no, I would. This one just lets you discard for 5 experience. It's a lot. It commits for a brain in the wild if you're really desperate, but it cancels any card that you draw from the encounter deck, including enemies.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a thing.
right now. Get out here. Yep. Then we have upgraded versions of Rite of Seeking and Shriveling. Rite of Seeking level 4 gives you +2 brain and gives you 2 additional clues, which is like really nice.
Yeah.
Makes it like actually feel good to play. It does cost a little bit more money, but again, it has that same rider that if you draw one of the symbol tokens, you lose the rest of your actions and your turn. But just do it as your last action.
Yep.
So because instead of investigating 3 times to get 3 clues, you can just do this as your last action and get 3 clues.
Mm-hmm.
And then your other 2 actions you can do other things with. And even if you're like willing, there's a lot of cases where like you're willing to risk it, just to like kind of greed a little bit of extra value. But and even if you like end your turn, as long as you pass the test, it still feels pretty okay because you're like, well, I basically spent 3 actions to get 3 clues.
Yeah, and it's also especially good like later in your campaign if you have a Rite of Seeking level 4 and Grotesque Statue. Like you could pretty comfortably Rite of Seeking first on your turn and use Grotesque Statue to choose a -2 and get 3 clues and be like, I'm the best.
Then I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we have our Shriveling, which for 3 experience just gives you +2 to your brain test when you're using it. Everything else I think it also gives you an extra charge, actually. But I could be wrong.
I think they're both 4 charges.
Okay. Basically, this just gives you a little bit of extra brain power to scale with some of the tougher enemies in the late game.
Then
Justin, it's your turn.
we have Song
He's
of the
going
Dead.
off.
This is a 2-cost spell that takes up that has 5 charges, and you can spend a charge to fight, and you use your brain instead of your fist, like all these other spells. You get +1 brain for this attack, and if a skull symbol is revealed during the attack, this attack deals +2 damage. Sounds great, doesn't it? On paper, it sounds, oh man, this is awesome. No.
Don't forget, Justin, we're recommending them these cards.
Yeah, but I feel like
your review.
I think like when it hits, the card's very powerful. Like when I played Jim in our mono purple and I killed a 5 health enemy in 1 action, like that's great, right? Like with some other things. I think with just Dunwich Legacy, it's a bit low. But say for example, you're taking damage, Jim, right? And the person you're playing with is doing clues. You could forgo the Rite of Seekings and play Song of the Dead and just like have Shriveling and Song of the Dead be your damage output. That's very doable for that build. The problem with Song of the Dead though is that it takes charges, and if you just do normally, you've spent a charge to just deal 1 damage to something, which kind of makes it so like you look at like something like Shriveling and you can just tell it's a bit weaker, albeit it is fun. Like it has like a fun thing behind it, but if you want to be damage with your limited collection, make sure a Shriveling is also in your deck if you want to play Song of the Dead. And why this thing
Song of the Dead pairs really nicely with the Grotesque Statue as well.
With which one?
the grotesque statue.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's where when you can start getting tricks like that, it becomes more likely to trigger. But Song of the Dead isn't assured damage, and you just got to be aware of that when you put it in your deck.
Yeah.
It's very
sometimes
it fluctuates.
Sometimes when you fire Song of the Dead with the grotesque statue, you're going to spend 2 charges to deal 1 damage. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Justin knows this one all too well.
Yes. Who wants to take these ones? Brandon, you talk about the Jewel. You know the Jewel?
The Jewel of Aureolus is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a 3-cost asset that takes up our necklace slot. As a reaction effect, after one of the symbol tokens is revealed during a test at our location, we can exhaust the Jewel to either gain 2 resources or draw a card. So, like, obviously, we kind of, like, skulls are free for us anyway, so that's great. But also, it just triggers if somebody else does it.
Yep.
It just has to be at your location, that's all. And it kind of pays for itself. Like, I guess you need to trigger it, like, 3-ish times to pay for itself. But after that, everything's gravy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got Fearless, which is here to offset some of the damage that we're doing to ourselves, to say nothing of the damage that the game might be doing to us. It's like a Guts that instead of drawing us a card, heals us for 2 brain damage.
Yeah.
Which is, like, it's a pretty good deal.
And then there's, like, the coolest card from the Dunwich Legacy cycle. Blood Pact, baby. This one you can place Doom on it to get +3 brain or +3 fist for a test. Limit once per test. I remember when I opened this card, I was like, I'm doing it. I'm making a Jim Culver Blood Pact deck. And it wasn't good. But man, was it fun. There's a lot of cool power in this card, but you just have to be smart with when you use it. Like, as we always say, like, you don't want to just use it and then your other teammates watch you just put Doom into play with no plan to stop it. And because it's a permanent, you can't really get rid of it as cleanly as something like an ally. However, the card right next to it, Moonlight Ritual, which is remove all Doom from 1 card you control, they were obviously put together to be friends and make it so that you can put Doom on it and then remove the Doom with it. And +3 brain and +3 fist is pretty strong. Especially if you can start doing some shenanigans in, like, later in the in the game with, like, in Dunwich, like the Undimensioned and Unseen one, when you have to fight the things with big brain. Blood Pact can come in pretty helpful there. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about Blood Pact? I may have missed.
So Blood Pact with Jim, because you have 3 punch, the other mode on it is also, like, pretty relevant here. Like, you could spend your off-color slots on weapons, and then use Blood Pact to, like, juice your punch. So you could, like, machete guys down, or, whatever sort of weapon it is you chose. It's just, like, kind of a neat thing. A lot of Mystics don't get that added utility out of Blood Pact. It's just brain pump.
Yeah.
But Jim can do some different things with it, too.
Yep.
Cool.
The Moonlight Ritual also pairs well with Alyssa Graham, and then you can use her a bunch and then just suck all the Doom off.
We wouldn't.
And it is a level 0 card, so you can just include it in your deck. And I wouldn't play it in the deck if you're not planning to upgrade to the Blood Pact and, like, just to keep Doom off Alyssa.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you're gonna upgrade to the Blood Pact, I would think about playing it probably, like, over I don't know, like maybe like go for more combat focused builds, so you can, like Brendan was describing, with machetes for your off color slots, and, like, shave maybe 1 shriveling depending on how many weapons you're putting in, or, like, a flashlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could play it instead of your manual decks. Like, getting to test defensively at 4 is great, but you could also just accept that if you hit those, you're going to Ward of Protection them or take the damage.
And I think one last thing to add, when we said, like, have a plan for your Arcane Initiate, Moonlight Ritual is not a great plan for that. Saving it for something like Alyssa, if you want to do that, is a lot more impactful than keeping your Arcane Initiate around.
When we say have a plan for Arcane Initiate, we mean you're gonna kill her.
Yeah, unless your deck is, like, incredibly spell event focused, in which case, like, the Arcane Initiate might be worth spending a card to keep around, but
Could you imagine the Arcane Initiate finding the Moonlight Ritual? She looks at you, just eyes so happy. She's like, I've done it. We can reverse what I've done. And you're like, no, sorry, Alyssa's here. You got to go out this window. And then and she goes. That's Jim. Jim will always be in this game the guy that I want to build around the most because I love Jim's flavor and story, and I love the trumpet, and I love the art on Final Rhapsody. There's just so much I love about Jim. I think with the Innsmouth conspiracy stuff coming out, there's some new exciting skull things that can make Jim a bit better, but I'll keep trying, and I'll keep screaming every time I don't draw skulls. Man. You guys, that's a PBG guarantee. Otherwise, like, we only have Lola Hayes left, the colorful one. That's fantastic. So next week,
it's time for the new series.
Yeah, once that cycle, So as I've been saying before, we're going to be doing the Innsmouth Conspiracy Investigators when their cycle is fully released. We will do it before we play test them, like together as a stream, like as a channel, because Lord knows when we'll be able to be in person together again. But for the time being, once that cycle is fully released and we see all the player cards, Travis can start theory crafting some new player decks for you guys for those, and we're excited to talk about them. Otherwise, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a new series in this spot focusing on archetypes for decks in the game of Arkham Horror, the card game. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.